Hello, welcome to Geeking Out with Shad. Yes, I'm wearing this hat for a reason. I just read an article from Motor Trend, and its headline is You're Being Lied to About Electric Cars. And it is probably one of the better articles I've read in a long time. The sub headline is Science has repeatedly shown EVs are better for humans despite the meme you just retweeted. And it cracks me up because it makes me think about Twitter and the fiasco that's going on over there right now. I mean, Elon Musk is a genius, or at least he hires geniuses around him and has accomplished some pretty amazing things. Tesla being one of them, SpaceX being the other. But wow, how he is just really messing up with this Twitter thing. Like, I am just baffled at how much of a S show that it is. Trying to keep it clean here. But let's get back to this lying bit, right? So this article, which is in the description, and I really highly recommend you read it. And I know right now there's people that are watching this that are going to move on. They're going to click away because they don't want to know the truth. I don't understand what it is. It's like they just absolutely have their little box and their little source of disinformation and lies, and they refuse to move outside of that box and start and actually listen and hear what other people are saying. So they've probably already bailed out of here,
You can't handle the truth.
moved on to some other video on YouTube. So they're definitely not going to read this article, but I highly recommend you read the article from top to bottom, right? Read the whole thing because there's some really important information in there and really good stuff. So I'm going to just kind of go over this brief thing of why EVs are cleaner than ICE vehicles, despite the meme that you have read or the article that probably was promoted by the oil industry somehow you read or whatever. There's some truths to certain things, and that's what I like about this article by Motor Trend is they talk about COBOL and the child labor issue. That's the one that I always see come up. COBOL and the child labor issue. And they're using this very device, and it even mentions that in the article, to tell us that there's child labor problems to produce cobalt or to mine for cobalt, which guess what's in the battery that's in these devices we're all using, right? So it's not just EVs, and I like it that they brought that up in the article. Is that yeah, my laptop sitting over here, my computer actually doesn't because it's a tower. Anybody use towers anymore? But my laptop certainly has a lithium ion battery in it. Lots of things do, right? So it's not just EVs. So I like it that the article isn't biased really in any way, and they're not just totally blanketing this. They literally talk about what the manufacturing of EVs is dirty, mining for lithium, all that stuff. But the point is which is more environmentally friendly, and the answer is EVs by far. And that's the bottom line here. And you're being lied to that isn't the case by many different sources out there. The oil industry, it has its best interest to make sure people don't embrace EVs because they're going to lose out. Which I don't understand because we need petroleum in this world. And the thing I've said many times is now that we have a better solution, and I do mean better, for moving our cars down the road, and it's going to only improve from here. It's only going to get better exponentially in the next 5, 10, 15 years. So that's why the auto industry is fully embracing EVs because they know it's a superior technology and will just become even that much more superior over ICE engines. But the reason, or I don't understand why the oil industry, because they're all about money, the highest profits they can make or whatever. But if you look at the long-term outlook, we need petroleum. We need petroleum for plastics, which are their own environmental disaster, to be honest. But that's more single-use plastics. But like the dashboard in your car, paints use petroleum, different lubricants, things like that. Lots of things use petroleum. So we need petroleum for other things. So now that we've found a better solution to propel our automobiles or vehicles down the road, let's stop wasting petroleum on something we no longer need to keep wasting it on, so we can preserve it for many hundreds of years to come. Because if we continue at the rate we're going, we're going to run out of it in like 50 years, or at least make it be such a finite resource and a hard to get out of the ground resource. Because that's the challenge, is there may be oil, many, hundreds of years worth of oil in the earth, but we can't get to it very easily, right? And it's really expensive to get it. So why? We don't have to do that anymore. So let's move on into EVs, right? So the reason we're being lied to is because the the petroleum industry, they're short-sighted and they want those profits right now. OPEC is probably one of the biggest culprits, but all the individual companies, BP, Shell, Standard, or whoever else is still around, Exxon, all those companies, right? Let's come back to this article and kind of this research done by Yale, which I've pointed out before because I read the article about 6 months ago or so. Super important because they do make this comparison. And really what it comes down to is when you manufacture both cars before they've driven any miles, so they've gone 0 miles, they just got done being manufactured, the EV has more environmental impact. I think everybody knows that. Everybody agrees that, yes, it takes more to build the EVs. Getting lithium is becoming a much cleaner process now that there's a huge demand for it, and we are concerned about the environment. They're finding cleaner and cleaner ways to achieve getting lithium. Cobalt, which is where the child labor thing always comes from, they're trying to use other materials, and I believe Tesla has already resolved that, but they're trying to get away from cobalt and also trying to source cobalt from legitimate places where there isn't child labor problems. So they're working on that part, right? But in general, EVs are dirtier to manufacture, right? What's very interesting is once those cars start driving on the road, they start doing this. What's even more interesting is even if the EV is 100% powered by electricity generated from coal, which is the other meme you always see, oh, your car's coal powered, your car's this, right? Even if it's 100% powered by coal, which no electric grid is 100% coal anymore. There's actually, and it's declining rapidly. The EV still runs cleaner than the ICE car, and I'll explain to you why in a moment, because that seems a little, weird, but I'll explain why, because we're going to account for everything here. So over the time of driving the cars, they become equal. Now, when do they get to that equal point? It's actually much sooner than I thought. I thought it would be 4 or 5 years, something like that, right? It's actually 1.5 years. 1.5 years, the EV and the ICE vehicle, internal combustion engine vehicle, are equal. And we got to talk about similar vehicles. So if we're talking like my Bolt EUV, then we got to compare that to maybe a Honda Civic or something, some other like smaller hatchback. So that's pretty amazing. I didn't know that. I actually thought it took longer. So that's different. And there's a reason why for that too, and I'll get to that in a moment. And so now they're equal while the EV is going to decline. This is the EV over here, by the way. And the ICE car over here is going to get more polluting. And so on and so forth. So there's a short lifespan of an EV where it's more environmental impact, then they become equal, and then from that point forward the EV just is cleaner and cleaner and cleaner and cleaner and cleaner for the rest of the lifetime of the vehicle. And again, there's another kind of lots of mistruths out there about battery life, all of that stuff. 8 to 10 years seems to be this number out there, but they're finding these cars are going much longer than that. I'd say the Prius is probably the vehicle that's proven the longevity of batteries, even though it's got a much smaller battery. But the batteries are lasting way longer than they ever thought they would actually initially. So, and that's getting better. They're making better batteries better. They are going to last longer. They're going to maintain their range better. All of that. It's always improving, right? So now, the big question is, why is this? How can this be? How can EVs start out this way? This is the EV. More environmental impact than the ICE vehicle, right? And then how do they get here, and then how does this happen? Well, it all comes down to the supply chain of how you get fuel into the car, on top of the fact that your internal combustion engine pollutes as it's driving 100% of the time. As long as that engine is idling or you're driving forward, you're polluting. The car's polluting 100% of the time. So where an EV, once the battery is charged, it is no longer polluting. It is driving down the road. So when you see zero emissions, that is 100% true. It doesn't mean zero emissions getting the electricity in the battery, but once that car is driving down the road, it is putting out zero emissions versus cars that are putting out a bunch of emissions depending on the size. And us here in America, we like our big trucks and our bigger SUVs and our bigger vehicles, so they're more polluting, right? So yeah, it's true that that's factor, but the supply chain also has to stay constant. So once the EV is produced, it's done. The supply chain is done. It's built. It's there. The battery is in it. So then all it needs is a charge, and that charge comes from a variety of resources, all of them cleaner than what it takes to get gasoline into your car. To start, you have to drill for crude oil. Crude oil is nasty stuff. It's black, nasty stuff. They used to call it, was it called black gold or something like that? Just nasty stuff. So we got to get that out of the ground somehow, because that's where it is. And there's a wide variety of ways of doing it. Fracking probably being the worst environmental disaster way of getting oil out of the ground. And then there's your traditional drilling. There's drilling in the middle of the ocean. There's drilling on land. Wherever they find a pool of oil, they're going to drill for it. And now within shale rock and stuff, that's where fracking comes in. They're going to pollute water into the ground to get it out. It's a mess. Fracking is terrible. Anyway, maybe I should do a video on fracking someday and what it actually is. So it's out there. You could look up on YouTube. There's plenty of videos on what fracking is. So we got to get that oil out of the ground. Every single tank you put in your gas in your car needs oil to come out of the ground. Every single tank, every time you fill that oil then needs to get transported from wherever it is, whether it's the middle of the ocean, middle of some land somewhere, whatever, to a refining place. There's tons of refineries around the world. I'm going to kind of focus more on the United States. A lot of the oil, most of our oil comes from the Middle East. It has to make it across oceans on big tanker ships, get to our shores because a tanker ship can't go on land, get transported. It gets put in big, you could see them in satellites, right? From those big white round tanks, right? And the oil gets put there. Then it gets transported to refineries, usually by train, hopefully not so much by truck, pretty much by train, or pipeline is the other way we do it. And then we get that crude oil to a refinery. And we have a refinery in the middle of Minnesota, just south of the Twin Cities here. Big one. The oil has to get there. This is where they're discovering a lot more pollution is bad. It's called methane. There's a lot of methane leaks in the refining process. The refinery down there, and someday when I'm down there, I'll take video of it from wherever I can safely stop, because it's usually off the highway and I don't want to stop on the highway. I'll figure out a way. But when I'm there, and I'll probably have to do it at night, when I'm there's huge flames that come out every once in a while. I see them, just this huge flame that comes out and stuff like that. The refining process is nasty. It's terrible for our environment. And so the refinery refines the crude oil into a bunch of different types of fuels. So diesel is one of them, and then all the different forms of unleaded gasoline is the other fuels, and there's other things that come out of there too, I'm sure, that I'm unfamiliar with. But crude oil becomes many different things. And then, but let's focus on unleaded gasoline, because that's what the majority of us drive. Vehicles that burn unleaded gasoline. So that now has to go from the refinery to the many thousands of gas stations, and that's usually transported by semi-truck, tanker trucks, and then gets put under the ground at the gas station, and then you stick the little nozzle in your car, fill the tank. So that whole process just to get the gasoline to the gas station is extremely dirty and pollutes a lot. And this is where, when I'm doing this thing, right, this is where this gets accelerated much faster than just burning the gasoline that's running in your car. There's the emissions in your car, but then there's the emissions to continuously keep fueling that vehicle. Pretty crazy when you think about how dirty it is to get gasoline. And that's the one thing that the oil industry, the petroleum industry, wants to keep as much under wraps as they can. They don't want you to know how dirty it is. Fortunately, I believe it's the European Union, they sent some satellites up recently, and those satellites can detect methane leaks, and they're finding out there's a lot more methane leaks than they ever knew about, because these individual refining stations and stuff are supposed to report their methane leaks so we can keep track of them. Well, huge surprise there. We're being lied to. They don't tell you the truth. So now they have ways of detecting those methane leaks. So that is why your ICE vehicle, in my Toyota Tacoma, I have one, right? As well as there's 2 EVs here, is pollutes and is more environmentally damaging by a lot, by a huge margin over EVs, regardless of the energy, the way the electricity is produced or created, whether it's through coal, nuclear, renewables. Renewables are about 22% here in the United States. That's pretty high, and it's getting more. I think for 2023 it's going to be 24%, so it's going to continuously improve. Natural gas, nuclear, renewables are the more common ones, and then coal. So there is no 100% coal-produced electricity in this country. Green Bay, I believe, is the most coal-producing city, and it's like 18% other forms. Everything else is coal, something like that. So even if your EV is charged in Green Bay exclusively, it's still cleaner than an ICE vehicle, is basically what I'm trying to say. So that's pretty much it in a nutshell. And so I want to come back to this lying bit. Why are we being lied to? Well, money. Money is the culprit. And there's just people out there that, for some reason, and I truly believe they want to believe in the lie. It's not that they might not even believe in the lie, but they want to portray for some reason their own best interest. They want this lie to keep being perpetuated or whatever. And that I don't understand why there's people out there, and there's a pretty large percentage of people out there that want to believe in this lie and a lot of other lies, like the election being stolen lie, right? That lie. But yeah, I really wish that, I'm fine if people have their individual opinions on things or their individual beliefs and all that. I'm 100% fine with. Everybody's going to be a little different in what they want, what they believe, their idea of what freedom is, all of that. But their opinion should come from truth. They should be getting the truth. They should be seeking the truth and then making their opinion. And honestly, if their opinion is, I just like the sound of my Camaro and I love how it feels and whatever, and I don't care if it pollutes more than an EV, fine, then that can be your opinion. But don't tell me that your car runs cleaner than an EV. Just admit that you want that ICE V8 noise, whatever. I get it. I've been there. I've loved that, right? Not so much anymore, but I used to, right? So there you have it. My hat says it all, and that's the reason I wear this, and it is targeted towards a specific individual that we all know about. I'm not even going to get into that person and his hat, which is a bunch of BS. So, yeah. Stop believing in the lies. Start seeking the truth. Then assess your opinion. That's all I'm asking. I'm not telling you should love EVs, right? I'm just telling you, stop believing in the lies. Appreciate your support for my channel. Please like and subscribe. Peace.